When I was in high school, I had to take up printing, which was a whiz because whiz. Well, and the guy says, "Boy, you know how to set type. Are you going to be a printer?" And I told the guy, I says, "I said type for our church newsletter." Oh. Hmm. And my next class would work with woodworking, and I made a tray. I glued this stuff together, and I carved out a slot, a square in it, and I varnished it, and I put a design in it, and I put it with a little gold paint and things like that. But the other class was machine shop, and which I still have, a little hammer. Yes, I'm very proud I made a little hammer. Now, the guys next to me, whose father was a cop in in the town, decided he was going to do something better than making a hammer or something like that. He made a World War II grease gun. No, not the stuff that squirts grease into your car. A grease gun, 9 millimeter, with a silencer. It was a group project. And they made it correctly. And they went to the police firing range and they went through a box of 9 millimeter with a silencer on it, too. The police chief invited the local ATF agent there. So when they proved that they could make a machine gun, grease gun, they turned it over to the ATF um, agent. And he was very impressed. Wow. So you guys, ever think about working for ATF? No, these guys are going to go become tool and die makers and things like that. Yeah, but that thing. And this country has had a lot of manufacturing and making guns. And some of these guns, as they would be called, Mattel Specials. Why would they be called Mattel Special? Because they were crudely made of aluminum. Yum, 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 yum. And I know a guy had a 22 short with four barrels on it. And he said, "Hey, look what I bought for X number of dollars." I said, "Wow, hey, that's pretty good. What kind of metal is that? That sure doesn't look like steel." It wasn't. He put shorts in it and he fired bang. There was a crack up the barrel. Wow, a suicide special, huh? Yes, and a lot of gun manufacturers skimped on their carbon steel, and especially they came overseas. Oh, this country was a great dumping ground after World War II and Korean War for European guns. You know, even machine guns coming into this country from German machine guns could be found in private hands. Coming back, the government wasn't too careful on what people brought back from the Pacific, sailors, Marines, and from the Army coming in from Europe. And they brought back everything that wasn't. They turned in their U.S. weapons, but they brought back German souvenirs. Yeah. Um, so, but how do I know? I was in an organization that received a lot of that stuff in the 50s, and I noticed a lot of stuff that is, what are they doing with this? In our, since I was involved with a group of um, people, people would donate things, and on the second floor below us was the um, um, agency, and there was an ATF agent down there, and we would get these donations in, and we would call him, and he would take this item or that item, or yes, you can have this type of item, but you can't. You need to disassemble it so you can ship it south to somewhere else. You guys can go assemble it down here. We won't take it from you. But they were looking for the stuff that kind of like gave a bigger bang than a firecracker. During 1996, the U.S. Congress in this country investigated something that happened in San Diego. A boxcar there, they used to have boxcars back then, it was broken into. And what they saw was cases of ammunition from that boxcar that looked like it was filled up and packed in there, and maybe 25 cases of ammo out of that boxcar. ATF was called on it, and they looked at it, and they looked at the manifest. The stuff was going to something like Kansas. What do you got? 10 boxcars of this stuff? Where this is going? You know? Well, 10 boxcars didn't arrive in Kansas. They kind of like split around the country. But then again, how many rounds of ammunition is this? What's it doing here? And a lot of it was slightly corroded. Oh, great. Kind of old. Packaged from China. Wow. And then they found out something else. To use as ammunition, and the clips, the 30 round clips, you needed something to fire this stuff with. And they started finding out, okay, are there any guns that come with this stuff? And they looked at that and saying, yes, there was 5 rifles in a case, and they knew that 2 railroad cars got filled up with cases. They expected more, but they looked at one of these things and, oh, it's semi-automatic, so it's pretty good. Yeah, you hope they're all semi-automatic, but they came in, and okay, they came into the country and they were spread around the country and they were sold at local gun shops, and sometimes they would have gun shows and you will find these there, and they're all had their numbers put on them, and they were being sold by the Red Army. The Chinese Red Army was selling. They imported them. 10 companies from the Red Army importing guns in the country. Wow. And guess who signed off on it in 1996? It wasn't Bill Gates. It was the other Bill. And they say, wait a minute, isn't this the guy who doesn't like people owning firearms? Yes. And he signed off of it. Wow. You know, a lot of that ammunition they could never account for. It fell into civilian hands. And I think about 30% of the rifles that came into the AK-47s that came in for, they could never find. Lost in paperwork. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. What else came in? Military equipment. What kind of military equipment? They could never get an answer from anybody what type of military equipment came in. They knew where boxes of this came in, boxes of that came in. They couldn't do it. Okay, let's fast forward. President Biden the other day banned ghost guns. You know what ghost guns are? Two types of guns. They're pistol kits where you assemble your gun, and those kits came from China. Right. And those kits did not come with serial numbers on them. So that's why they call them ghost guns. The other type of ghost guns happen to be what you make in a 3D printer. You know, you're spraying layers and layers of plastic onto a program, a computer software program, and you're making a gun using a 3D printer. Wow, that's interesting. And I'm quite sure you can make it into every color 22, 25, 32, 38, 44, whatever. And somebody says that, you could almost make a rifle like this, the receiving part of that thing. Unlike the Chinese made gun kits, the plastic ghost guns don't have serial numbers. And that's why they call them ghost guns. They're non traceable. But Joe Biden outlawed it. Wait a minute. How do you put a serial number in a piece of plastic out of a 3D printer again? That's interesting. But then, of course, they've looked at how many people have been killed with ghost guns, and it's a few, especially if they were made out of plastic. What happens? Well, if you put say a 9 millimeter bullet into a pistol that's made out of plastic, usually what happens is it goes off and the bullet blows up the firearm. And the Chinese made kits too also seem to have a structural problem. You fire them off a couple of times and the barrel cracks. Whoops. Hey, what do you expect? You're not supposed to buy the stuff anyway. Whoops. The stuff isn't made out of carbon steel. Whoops. Well, they're made in China. What do you want? So, while they're not the greatest thing in the world, usually a guy who's about to fire this thing once, if it's plastic, it blows up in his hand. Yes, now we call them hook. And if it's made out of steel, it it blows up in his face. Yes, that's life. Goodbye.